Hello
cold
and welcome
opener.
once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of this series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
I've decided to stop being self-aware because what I do is really none of my business.
Oh, the crickets like that.
Well, good. I'm glad to see they're awake. It's coming into fall. I bet you never know if they're going to be eaten or just sadly pass away.
Or, you know, they
Frozen.
go into hibernation waiting for your next dad joke.
I don't think so. I think they just spew a bunch of eggs all over the place and then they start up again. But we're not here to talk about cricket sex, are we?
No,
I'm not sure. Did I stumble
let me
into
look.
a podcast?
Is
that on the agenda?
Is there a podcast about cricket sex?
Platypus playfulness. No, not there.
Cricket sex. Let's see. There are no podcasts about. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Scientific American does have episode of their podcast called The Sex Life of Crickets Revealed.
Oh, well.
That's right. Scientific American.
$1 million idea like we're wont to do, but nope, too late.
They did it back in 2010. Craziness.
Yep. Well, I'm more interested in how many views they get because, I mean, if they get more views than us, well, next week we got ourselves a new podcast.
No, we're here to talk about funny books.
Yes. And this is what I call a catch-up show. No, I'm not talking about condiments, although it is pushing noon and I am getting a little hungry. But we'll muster ahead because we know you relish the thought. Basically what happens is as we podcast over these last couple of months.
Years, decades.
Yeah, we can say that now. What happens is there's things that we want to talk about, but they always get sidelined. Sometimes it's sad news, somebody will pass away. Sometimes it's urgent news, like somebody in the distributor wars is going to, mess up again and screw comic shops over. Sometimes we got to stop and do our previews episode, which I know we just dropped one, but I just got my new previews. So did you want to do a previews episode this week or next week?
I haven't got my previews yet.
See, that's what I like. That's why I stopped getting mine in the mail because I can just pick it up and pay a little bit more, but I can pick it up right away at the source when it comes out.
All right. I do have a complaint here.
Okay, we'll start out. We're going to do an extended Freaking and Geeking. Corey, take it away. What do you, I suppose it's a freaking.
Yeah.
What do you want to freak about?
Okay. I buy my comics from DCB Service. 99% of the time, I am incredibly happy with the prices, the delivery, the packaging, everything. Now, you could say all you want that I should be supporting a local comic shop, but I work at, let's see, I'm up to 4 jobs now, right, Joe?
I stopped counting at 7.
I have the office job. I have the group home job. I have this, the podcast. I have PW Insider stuff I do. I don't have a lot of time to just go and wander the aisles of a comic shop. And I much rather have my stuff show up. And I pre-order and pay for it early to get the discount. But one of the things that has really it's sort of taken root over the last few months, and that is when they send out previews, I don't get the Marvel and DC until the next shipment. And I've said a few times, hey, why is this? Oh, we don't get them in time, et cetera, which I don't understand because every other comic shop on the planet.
Yeah. I was just going to say that.
DC and Marvel.
That sounds like Calder Carb.
In the same shipment as previews.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, that's one of the reasons I started going to pick mine up at the source because they are included with it. Rarely, sometimes they're not. But for the most part, yeah.
And you would think DCB Service is the distributor for DC. If it could get to comic shops the same Wednesday as previews, you'd think they'd have it. And they could just bring it over from one warehouse to the other. But obviously not.
No.
I don't understand it. I don't get it. Joe, what do you have on your list there that you want to talk about?
Well, I'll continue with Freaking. As you know, I'll talk occasionally about the games I play, and they're what's the word? Freemium games, that type of BS. But I also, if I like the game I will pay. You know, the big ones I play, of course, Simpsons Tapped Out. Now that it's correct, Tex Express is a train-based word game. It's supposed to make my brain feel a lot younger. Doesn't do shit for the rest of my body, but different subject. Sometimes I check out games like Monopoly Go. Anyways, Switchcraft's another one I play on and off because it's got a nice storyline. It's one of those match 3 type games. Lately, the phenomenon has become, okay, fine, you run the ad, and sometimes you get those ads where you can play along with it. I suck into that too because it's fun to try it, and that decides whether I want to do it or not. Some of these games, as soon as you touch the ad, they self-load onto my phone, and I'm like, I don't recall giving permission to do that. And a lot of it's a pain in the butt because I'll just go uninstall them. Sometimes I'll keep them. Like I picked up this one Hearts game, which actually it hasn't gotten boring yet. In other words, the algorithms haven't gotten to the point where I can predict what's going to happen. And I'm trying to think who done did it. Whatever. It's irrelevant. It got downloaded, and I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And I like it. But it's bad enough, okay, watch a 60-second ad. Okay, fine. 60 seconds, hit the X. No. Then it goes to another page where I got to wait for the X to appear, or it gives me a 5-second countdown. It's like they just are prolonging the views. Now, I don't mind. Tapped Out doesn't have ads. Text Express does. And they say, hey, we're trying to keep it free. By watching the ads, it helps keep the game free. And they give you rewards, whatever premium you need to buy stuff. But I don't like this self-loading thing. I don't like the ads that never end. I don't like okay, I got to wait for the X. Or worse, it's, the self-loading is annoying enough when it like dumps you into the Play Store. Here's where you can download it. There are sometimes it's beneficial because I look at the reviews and decide, this game's too buggy, this game's not bad. Anytime it's got 4.5 or under. So I dropped that Western game I really loved that I played forever because it just never got updated. It was so glitchy, and it was a real-time game that people I actually knew online. Not that I'd know them in person, but so I do find that annoying. Fortunately, I will never do that to you, at least not till we figure out an app. We don't have an app yet, do we?
No.
We have a Wikipedia page.
Not only that, we will never update.
No, same old
If we're
shit.
glitchy, it's going to be glitchy forever.
No, that's only if I go move back to Alaska. Oh, those early episodes are hard to listen to. Okay, you're next. What's up, Corey? What old business haven't we covered that you've been waiting to?
I don't get in previews, and we make jokes about it all the time, but these companies that haven't published new books in months, in some cases years, I get that you buy your ad space in previews. I do. I understand that. But let's take a look at who is that company. Not a Blaze. Aftershock. Aftershock has not published a new comic in months. Months. Yet, they are still one of the deluxe publishers. My understanding was that you needed to sell a certain amount of market share to be featured in the front of the book. That's why DC was there. That's why Dark Horse was there. That's why Image was there. You had to sell over you had to have 5% of the marketplace in order to be considered a premier publisher. Then to be a deluxe publisher, there was a different level that you needed to hit. I am 100% sure that Aftershock, which is just taking out ads to clear out the warehouse and hasn't published a new book in months, is not selling enough to be considered a premier publisher. And we go on and on about how Avalon and Boundless are just clearing out the warehouse and have been doing so. I know that Avalon, it's been at least 4 years since they've put out a new book. And yet they get a huge spread. Meanwhile, smaller publishers like Drawn and Quarterly, like Revolution, like, let's see, let's just grab a few here at random. Publishers that should be getting more of a spotlight because they're really putting out more stuff. Keen Spot Entertainment has been around for almost 20 years. They don't get a spotlight. Lev Gleason, they don't get a spotlight. Yet, Avalon, huge spotlight every month for, hey, we found more of this special cover that nobody wanted when it was originally printed 15 years ago, but now you can get it for cover price. Then you get Valiant, which has just, oh, we're pulling this stuff, but we still have all the inventory, and nope. Too bad. Sorry, kids. Valiant, you've been pulled. Why? Well, cause. No reason. They don't get the same treatment as the other, as like Avalon and stuff like that. I don't understand how the focus works. I don't understand how they do what they do. And it really makes no clear sense. And if I was a shop, I'd be wondering what the hell is going on. It gives me a headache, Joe. Gives me a headache. What else you got on your list?
I've got a mix of sad news and interesting news, or good news, depending on you. It sounds like our friends down at Mind's Eye will be closing. It sounds like they're whatever's going on to try to get their new store going didn't pan out or isn't panning out, and they are not willing to sign a lease to continue where they're at. So I haven't gotten this officially from Eric or anybody down at Mind's Eye. I know he caused a mild panic in the community when somebody posted, I went down to Mind's Eye and they were closed, nothing but a sign, and everybody's, oh my God, what does the sign say? No, they don't have help. One of their employees moved away and he's, like everywhere, having trouble finding someone to work there, which is baffling to me because that was always kind of my dream job. So I'm going to try to get down there. I don't know. It's like you said, Corey, everything's busy going on, but I may have some time coming up. I'll talk about that when we return to Freaking. On the plus side, there's a couple stores opening out. The first one, I have almost nothing but the name. One of our favorite stores, Nerding Out. We got one in Inver Grove Heights. We got one in Rochester. They're opening one up in Coon Rapids.
Ooh.
I went to try to find the announcement online. I went to their site. I could not find anything other than we're opening one up in Coon Rapids. So more on that as we discover it, or I visit Nerding Out and get the details. There's another shop opening up in, let's see, I guess it's opening up in Minnetonka at Ridge Square South Shopping Center. It's called Bricks and Minifigs. And it sounds like it is going to be basically Legos and other type stores. They're going to be at 12909 Ridgedale Drive in Minnetonka. Just trying to look at the map here. It looks like it's just south of 394. So that sounds like it'd be kind of a fun store whenever that thing opens up and gets ready to rock. And again, I found them just because Facebook dumped the feed on me. And again, I don't know where Nerding Out's announcement is. I'm assuming it's real, but if you can open up a store, maybe I should be able to type Nerding Out Coon Rapids and find it, especially if it sounds like it's a done deal. So sadly, one gone, two popping up. What do you got next for us, Mr. Strode? Freaking and geeking, whatever. It's all good.
Well, I have a freaking and a geeking.
Oh,
I went down to Hot Comics Jordan in Jordan, Minnesota, which is a smallish town, only a couple thousand people, and it's about 15 to 20 minutes away from Chaska, so it's rural for Minnesota. I went to their warehouse sale, and I just went through the trade paperbacks. I started to go through the comics, but the lighting was so poor that I basically gave up after a little bit, because it's okay, nothing's in alphabetical order. The lighting's really poor. It's super humid in here. They had a door open and a fan, but it was, when you got to the back of the store, it was too warm to hang out in. And basically the trade paperbacks were enough for me anyway. And then I had to pick up previews because I had not got it yet for our previews episode. So I went across the street over to their regular store. Now, the freaking is they have cut down the space for their comics. The wall that used to be new comics was now games and such. And they had sort of put the new comics in a specific area, and they've cut down. It's mostly the big selling Marvel and DC and some indies that sell really well. But for the most part, that whole area was cut down. But the fact that this store has been around so long, and this was a Friday night, it was packed. They had 3 tables set up in the middle of the store for gaming, and they were all busy. There were people playing Pokemon. There were people playing Magic. There was playing some board game I didn't recognize. The Zap Arcade, they have half the building is an arcade where they've taken old video games and restored them. They also have a room where you can play Xbox and original Nintendo and Nintendo Switch, etc., etc. That area was packed. There were people in the store looking at the gaming stuff. Now, we have a gaming store here in Chaska. They don't carry any comics at all, but it's a gaming store. So the fact that we've got a gaming store here and 15 minutes away further out is that busy, that shows that when you expand what your store does, you can keep going. Because I bet if they just sold comics, they would have shut down years ago. But if you kind of become this nerd hub of, okay, we've got board games and card games and comics, and the fact that they have an arcade really helps them a lot, I would bet. But the fact that they're so successful and doing so well really makes me happy that they have found a formula that works. And as Comic sales tend to go up and down. And all indications are this year will not be as successful as last year. I also think with the next price raise in comics, it's coming where your regular comics are going to go from $3.99 to $4.99. I think you're going to lose a lot more readers who will be like me. It's like, okay, I'm going to go digital. I'm going to go trade paperback only. I'm not going to be part of the Wednesday Warrior group. I think they have spread what they do so much that it's not going to hurt them. And the stores that are getting hurt are the ones that are focusing on the Wednesday Warrior. The person who comes every Wednesday to pick up their stuff. The other thing about Mind's Eye, how long did they go without new comics?
I couldn't even tell you.
I know it was at least 3 months, and it might have been longer. And the problem with that is, if your focus is on the Wednesday Warrior, the minute you're not able to get new comics, that person's not going to miss their books. They're going to go somewhere else. And if you're a comic focused shop and you're not getting new books, there's not much of a reason to stop by. Joe?
Let's see. Let's go a little geeking here. I know I promised it freaking, but let's go. I went to the Minnesota Comic Exchange Comic Show as a dealer last week, and it was okay. I had a great time. It was always fun just to see people I haven't seen. Ran into Casey, one of the teenage fan club. Of course, they're always asking how you are, Corey, and I said, doing good. Doesn't do cons.
He was hit by a banana truck.
No, actually, I sat next to a guy named Jeff, and it was great because we just talked and had fun. He even said it was so great to sit next to somebody who's engaging and not just sat there and said nothing, kind of like on the other side of me. And again, I didn't sell a lot. I was kind of disappointed because this was the first time out where I had actually advertised that I was bringing our old friend Mike Edmondson's stuff to sell online. A lot of people are like, oh, that's so great. That's so great. At the show, a few things sold, but they didn't necessarily sell because they were Mike's. And I was underwhelmed. I'm beginning to think that I don't have con savvy anymore. I have the unusual ability to find things for $1 and discover they're worth $50 or more. I do recognize things that are underpriced, but I'm not big on the keys. Case in point, I sold Mike's Captain America 100, which probably guides about 500, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. I sold it to another dealer. Again, they didn't care, but you got a good deal. He was happy, bought a couple other things throughout the show. So I was a little disappointed with that because, I want to make a lot of money. I escaped my table because there were a lot of deals going on. I did catch a few, and I'll talk about them a little later. Not this week, next week. What I did see, though, was kind of fun, and I did mail Corey some of the pictures I took because the guy next to me, Jeff, was selling a little fuzzy. It's either a collection for the mother of someone who killed himself or the person direct. Either way, he's selling them for somebody. He's selling things that you just don't see. And I'm just calling up some of the pictures here. For example, he had a Venus #1 from Marvel Comics. I'm trying to get the date on this.
1948 or 49.
Yeah, 48 when they were under Atlas. Mm-hmm. A gorgeous comic, a 5.0. This thing ranges between $7,000 and $8,000. Oh, I wish I was born rich instead of so good looking. He might have given me a deal on it, but I wasn't going to ask. It's way out of my ballpark. But just to see one was fantastic. He also had a shock suspense story number 17 that was an actual Bill Gaines file copy. And that itself is unusual and rare. It comes with a certificate of authenticity signed by William Gaines and Bob Overstreet and Russ Cochran. And that thing was a 9.2. I didn't even ask what that was. The other thing he had, and he asked me about it, he had a Spawn #1 that was CGC 9.6 with a red label. Tell him what the red label is, Corey.
I honestly don't remember.
And I didn't either. Turns out if you first started when CGC was on the ground, the red label was their modern grade. So he had a bunch of books like that, which tells you how long ago this person that he was selling them for had graded this comic. And being a 9.6, he was asking quite a bit. I wanted to buy it just because it had the red label, and it was kind of a curiosity. I didn't. I'll talk about what I did buy when I return to geeking subject, which I will say the next time I do the show will be the upcoming Fall Con, and I will restock what I sold, and I will have a lot of my own stuff, things that haven't seen the light of day. That's, like I said, some of the things that sold, people are like, oh my God, where did this come from? I'll also have more of Mike's stuff. Lisa, the prize lady, will be there. My old partner, Pat Gruber, is going to be there. And I think Brian Wilson will be there. No, not the Beach Boy. He was one of the guys, the original founders of the MCBA. And we're talking like, when did the first MCBA show? 76, 77? I'm sorry.
No.
86,
No.
87. No?
It was 88, 89.
88. Okay, because
I moved here in 87.
Because my first comic shop, Pat and I figured was one of John Nunziata's downtown St. Paul, and we figured it was 85. And then I know we hooked into the MCBA, and I guess Pat and I were there from the beginning. I think I only ever missed one show, and that was when I was deployed with the TSA. So I'm looking forward to that. Again, come on out. If you see anything in my eBay store you're interested in, if you're in a bind, you're way behind, hey, I'm willing to make a deal. We want to pick up something from Mike, or you just want to go have fun. It should be a good show, especially people are blowing crap out. It's the place to go if you can go. So that's what I got for this geeking. Corey, what you got next? Freaking geeking, one of each.
Marvel announced they're bringing back the giant size comics. Back in the 70s, once Marvel became #1, they were starting to experiment with different formats. And what they were going to do was you had your regular comics that were 25 cents. And then they were going to have 100 pagers like DC had for 60 cents. However, there was a paper shortage. The paper they were using was terrible, to the point where if you look at some of those 70s comics, it's so close to wood pulp you can actually see little pieces of wood in it sometimes.
I thought it was just me.
They were using the cheapest grade of paper possible. So instead, they did giant size books. And the first were 35 cents, and then they went to 50 cents. And as a kid, I loved them because some of them were news stories. It eventually became where they would reprint stuff. And many people know the giant size era because of one of the most famous and expensive comics ever were published in that format, Giant Size X-Men #1. Marvel is going to be doing giant size books again all through next year because it's the 50th anniversary. They're starting with giant size Spider-Man #1, which will be a fight with Spider-Man and Venom. But they will also be doing a reprint of Giant Size Superstars, which was the first, featuring the Fantastic Four, The Wildest Thing versus Hulk Battle of Them All.
I'm sorry, Marvel, but if you can't rival Peter Griffin versus the Chicken, don't even advertise.
Yeah, but this was done in 74.
Well, okay.
And it was written by Gary Conway, drawn by Rich Buckler. I love the fact they're bringing back the giant size books, and I hope that they do. I know that they're going to have a news story in the front and a backup, which is a reprint. But as a kid, those were my favorite comics because, again, as a kid, it's like, oh, wow, this comic is much bigger. I'm getting more. And they would reprint stuff like the giant size Iron Man was a bunch of Iron Man stories. Captain America was a bunch of Captain America stories, and on and on and on. And I just loved them because I was one of those kids who, it took me a few months to realize that the stuff in the reprint books were actually reprints. I think I've told this story before. One of the kids on the bus was like, "Oh, you need to buy Marvel comics because stuff happens in them that's real. You know, they killed Spider-Man's girlfriend, Gwen Stacy, et cetera, et cetera." So when I had a spare quarter and was someplace where I could buy a comic, I bought Marvel Tales number 59 and read it and went, Gwen Stacy's still alive. See, right there. Right there. And we were all really confused until a few months later when I picked up some World's Greatest Comics, which reprinted the Kirby Fantastic Four. In the bullpen, it said, "Kirby's back." What? He's been gone? But there's, and then I suddenly, oh, it says originally published in Fantastic Four, this, and Fantastic Four 171 was on the stanza. Then it clicked. But before that, the reprints to me were just like, this is the Marvel stuff I've always heard about. And then I sought them out because Roy Thomas and everybody else would, when they would have footnotes. Oh, you need to read this issue to know what he's talking about. And it would be stuff from, 10 years ago that was being reprinted. So I'm excited about the giant size books. I love it when Marvel does stuff like this. And the giant size books, many of them have not been reprinted. There was a paperback that reprinted like the best of the giant size. But I remember in the 80s, that was the first thing that I filled in. When I'm filling in a collection, it's like, okay, I want all these giant size books. Joe?
All right, you want to go freaking or geeking?
That's up to you. It's your show.
I just figured I'd let you decide. Let's do freaking because I always want to end on a geeking, and I got a lot. Okay, the government's shutting down. By the time this podcast airs, it shuts down. I am government. I'm going to go to work and not get paid because we're having a shutdown, a government shutdown. I'm essential. It's not confidential. I got to get my ass to work. I would prefer to just be furloughed and go home, but whatever. The environment is, there are some, I can't envision anybody that's extreme right listening to our podcast. If you are, God bless you, because I know we try to keep it political free, but if you haven't figured it out after 14 years, and how many episodes, Corey?
620.
Yeah, Corey and I lean a little left. So again, I don't think we have a lot of hardcore righties, but boy, these are the nut jobs that are shutting the government down. Did they learn from the previous shutdowns that there's usually a heavy cost to pay for the Republican side? No. Do they know how to compromise? No. They're throwing basically children tantrums. Well, if we don't get what we want, we're going to F up everybody. Well, congratulations. I am personally going to be fine. I've got money saved. I do the eBays. Matter of fact, if you want to buy something on eBays, you know where to go. Crazy KRYZ. Say, hey, I heard you're having a government shutdown sale. Whatever. It's just, people are these guys are going to work, and people are complaining about TSA. Yeah, the last time this happened, we had call outs. There's going to be absenteeism. And I kind of wanted to address that because, this basically you're telling everybody who has to be to work, I'm assuming that's NOAA, the guys who decide whether or not tornadoes or hurricanes bearing down on you, military, probably aware of the military or not, FAA, people like that. And TSA's got to go to work. And it's not a secret that we're short-staffed because it's hard to get people in and to train them. Well, now you're going to get these people, not old bastards like me who are just, 3 years, 4 months. Hang on a second. I got the countdown clock here somewhere. Let's see. Carry the 3. So we're talking as of this podcast, as we're recording on 9/28, 3 years, 4 months, 3 days, 12 hours, 2 minutes, and 35 seconds as now. Not that I'm counting. So I'm not going anywhere, but if you're a new guy and you just got hired and this is your only income and now you're being told, oh, sorry, we're not going to be able to pay you for, we have no idea how long. The last shutdown lasted 35 days. You will get your pay eventually. What people don't realize, it's illegal to volunteer for the United States government. As far as I know, this law was passed in Civil War times. Matter of fact, Corey, shouldn't we just go back and replay the previous podcast where I freaked on this? Because it's all the same fucking arguments. But these people, they're not going to stick around whether or not they promise pay or not. The only thing that's different is that Congress passed a law saying as soon as the government's open, I get paid. They don't have to pass anything saying, yeah, like they did in the previous shutdowns. Everybody who's furloughed gets paid, everything's covered, which is good because there is a school of thought where people are thinking in this environment, you can just see the same right guys who are so opposed to government being shut down anyways, or being open, which is really weird. Why are you in government if you're opposed to government, if all you want to do is shut down the government? I could see them very well going, well, these people didn't work, they're not getting paid, even though Congress has always covered it. The other weird secret about that is, and I discovered this the hard way because during the first shutdown I was part of, I got really sick. It might have been the flu. I was out for a week and I came back and, you call in and they read you the script, blah, blah, blah. You cannot use your leave during a government shutdown, blah, 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 yakety, yakety. I don't even know if I'll be able to do overtime. I've been trying to get overtime because my wife's got some surgery coming up, and judging with all my surgery, I don't have a lot of time ready. Anyways, so again, it's all these life things that are affecting people. I don't know where I was going with this, but I'm just going to finish. The whole thing that, you're saving money. No, it costs more to shut down the government and open it up. And blockheads just don't realize that. Everybody's all happy. Oh, we don't have the government shut down. We're not going to get that until something happens that affects you. It could be your school lunch program shut down because it's not getting federal funds. It could be you're not getting whatever check. Social Security checks are exempt this time around. I think they passed a law to keep them. But your military boys ain't going to get paid. Coast Guard, whomever. You might be somebody waiting for student loan, or you might have some other type of thing coming.
And it's hurricane season.
Yeah, hurricane season, good time to shut things down. I remember back during a previous administration, I think it was Bush 2, where they said, yeah, we should get rid of NOAA. Boom. All of a sudden it was like a tornado outbreak. It's like, yeah, I don't think you quite realize what they do. So again, I'm not worried. Don't be worried for me if you are buy something out of the eBay store. I've got friends. They're married. They both get government paychecks. They get single government paychecks. Sure, there was a nice support system that popped up. I think it happened while I was out with my hip. There was food banks, gas cards, blah, blah. They probably still got them. They expire in a couple of weeks, but, you'll get them in time to go. Again, nothing I would love better than the next week go, hey, government doesn't shut down. Big geeking. To quote Marge Simpson, It's not going to happen. So that's my life freaking. Corey, you're up.
I don't have a life freaking. I've taken this week off. I was going to go down and visit family, but my middle sister is still sick. And so instead, I'm going to go down around Christmas time, which my parents would much prefer anyway, I guess. We're about to hit our busy time at the office job. This is actually the last week you can take vacation before we hit our busy time, which is funny because on every one of my clients, open enrollment is going to be in November. But because we have other clients who will have their open enrollment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it's just, nope, nobody can take vacation from the 1st of October to the middle of December. Fine. The group home, after a summer where I didn't have a lot of shifts, they're now giving me more shifts, which I need, quite frankly.
Because you know Corey doesn't eBay stuff like me.
No.
He's a hardcore. I even made that offer offline. I said, hey, if you got, especially because you and I have that weird ability to like buy something that we have in 3 different formats.
Yes.
But Corey don't sell his stuff.
Nope. I don't want to get into that. But
we've talked about it.
But everything's about to get busier toward the end of the year, as usual. But both my jobs like me. The PW Insider, I've been doing it for 4 years. And it's weird that it doesn't feel like 4 years. It feels like I'm still brand new at that job. And I've had jobs where after 4 years, it was like, oh my God, I got to quit this. It's driving me crazy. But I still feel like I'm brand new. They really like what I do. The readers and subscribers like what I do. It's rare for me to say this. I really don't have any complaints about any of my jobs. And I have to say, that is a geeking. You know, the office job, there are things that I don't like about it. But dude, I work from home. It's not physical labor. It's not that hard. I don't have the same problems I had a couple years ago because I've improved at what I do. At the group home, they absolutely love me because of my flexibility, the fact that I know all the clients. They can drop me in any of the houses. And I can cover a shift, make sure everybody gets fed, gets their medications, and gets to bed. Any house with very little notice. The podcasts are still growing.
Yay!
We get about 4,000 downloads of an episode when it's within the first month. Where I've been just dropping them on YouTube for another way to get them out there, because my son says that he doesn't listen to podcasts as podcasts. He's like you, he's got a subscription to YouTube for listening to music. And I've put them up there and we're getting some traction there. Some episodes get 40, 50 views, some get 10 to 12, but it's growing over time. Every month I look and I see, oh, we had this many minutes, which means people are going back and listening to the old episodes on YouTube, or they're typing in and, oh, here's an episode they did on the Avengers. I'll listen to that. Here's an episode they did on EC Comics. I'll listen to that. I find all of that really cool. And it's weird to say, but the medication I take for my anxiety, the fact that my jobs are much less stressful than they were a few years ago, I'm really busy. I'm a really busy person. And I'm taking this week, and it's funny how my body has just said, you're not doing anything.
And believe me, I've wanted to give you a call and say, hey, let's do lunch. Let's get together. Let's record some extra podcasts. But I'm like, you know what? He needs this time away as well. I'm happy we're doing the one. We're keeping current. But, yeah, I don't want to, like, monopolize your time.
Well,
can Corey come out and play?
It's been nice in that, if I get up and do stuff and all of a sudden I go, I'm a little tired, I lay down and take a nap. Naps are glorious, by the way.
I like naps.
But I'm in a really good place. And if you would have asked me 7 years ago, I couldn't have seen being in this good place. Because remember, the office job kept me as a temp for a year and a half. The group home was really stressful because in each house we had 10 to 12 people and it was just chaos all the time. No, now things are pretty smooth. I'm feeling very zen. And I'm not one of these people who, I need to work on my career. No, I just want to be comfortable. I want to be comfortable. I want to create stuff, and I have time and energy to do that. Joe?
All right. Well, let's should we end on my freaking or my geeking, I should say. I already did
Sure.
my freaking. All right. I don't think it's a problem anymore. I thought it was for a while, but I figured something out. Okay, Corey, here are the signed books I have picked up in the last week. Okay. So I picked up and I ordered these through Tim at Granite City from Dynamic Forces. Tom King did those April Fool covers.
Yes.
And I picked up those that were signed. That Tom King signed. Yeah, one he did the Joker Man Who Stopped Laughing #7. He only did 37 copies, or 39. I got 7. The Batman 143, he only did 39 as well. I picked up, it's a little beat up, but it's a signed Catwoman 1. If you remember from 1993, it was the embossed one where her stuck out. This one was signed by Joe Duffy, Jim Ballant, Dick Giordano, and Buzz Setzer. So basically the entire creative team signed it. It's a little beat up, but it was handled pretty good. I picked up a White Widow that comes from Absolute Comic Group that was signed by Ali Garza, I think. He actually is up in St. Cloud. There's been a ton of Power Girl variants from Action to Norton, things like that. I picked up one by Will Jack, who did the cover of it. And, you look at it, and it's like, hey, there's fingerprints on it. Well, yeah, he had to touch it. It was a foil one. I went back, got a Batman 509, Dick Giordano, Doug Mink. This was done only 2,500 copies back whenever this came out in 94. I picked up a Shadow of the Bat that was signed by Mill Manley. I got a remarked edition of Ultimate Spider-Man #2 that came with was signed and remarked by Art Thibert, or Thibert, if you are
the bear.
Inclined. I like Thibert. So that was kind of cool.
Art the Bear.
I got one of the Valiant Vaulted Signature Series that was signed by two people probably that did right in the Future Force #9. I picked up a Star Wars War of the Bounty Hunters that was signed by Miko Suayan. Not sure how you pronounce his name. Not that you think I'm buying big names. If you remember a book called FemForce from Entity Comics, I got one signed by Shelley Robertson, and they only did 200 of those. I got a bunch more signed. I picked up a Catwoman. I just picked up Catwoman 50 that was signed only by Jim Ballant. I do have some Tarot of the Witchblade sold. I've got like 3 short boxes, full of comics. And I just picked up a few more CGC autographs at the aforementioned Minnesota Comic Exchange. The guys down at Most Wanted were blowing out CGC books. And I got a White Widow again that was signed and sketched by Jamie Tydal, and he sketched a Catwoman on it. They had done a Batwoman and a Catwoman, and I went with the Catwoman. And then a cheap copy of Stillwater #1 signed by Aaron Bartling. And these all have the yellow signature series on it, so that's as good as anything. I do like certificate of authenticities, although they're not as, again, a certificate doesn't mean anything really. And then off of the eBays on a bidding auction, I actually picked up a copy of Wonder Woman 184, which is the iconic cover by Adam Hughes, where the current Wonder Woman meets the old Wonder Woman, and the comic looks like it's been faded and scratched, and like you would maybe see an old Golden Age comic. This was signed by Adam Hughes, 9.4, but you're paying for the signature. The comic itself, if you have it, is $100 variant because it's so sought after and so rare. But to get one signed by Adam, I realized something about myself. I've always wanted to collect autographs. I think back to all the times I ran into a celebrity and stuff like that. And, nowadays it's selfies because you kids and your fancy phones, but I've always wanted to collect autographs. There was a guy, and this was back when there was a magazine called, I think it was either City Pages or Twin Cities Reader. They were the freebie weekly magazines. One folded it into the other and then eventually was just shut down. But they had a guy in town who had massed over, it was an ungodly number, like 300,000 or maybe 400,000 autographs. And he kept them in card catalogs and files and everything. They talked to him about like how the toughest autographs, and he said a lot of times you just mail away to a celebrity and you'll get one back. He said at the time they were having problems because you never know if you'd get a real autograph or if it was just a like stamped one. And I always stuck with me. He said, what was the hardest one to get? He said, the hardest one to get is Jack Nicholson, because Jack does what Jack wants. I think at this point in time of his life, and even back then, he can do whatever he wants. He knew the aunt of Jack Nicholson, so he sent her a note. And back then, it was all notes. It wasn't email like you kids have nowadays. And she wrote back saying, I will try. I got to catch him in the right mood, blah, blah, blah. Half a year later, it showed up in the mail. And I think about the people even at TSA that I've run into that I could have gotten autographs from, but TSA was at the time, don't bother the celebrities, even though that's way out the window. Patrick Swayze, Eric Estrada, James Earl Jones, Leslie Nielsen, John Waters, some of the pro wrestlers, Kurt Angle, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Brock Lesnar. These are people I saw in person, not to mention hearing from people like one woman down on one of the checkpoints met and got a hug from Smokey Robbins. Politicians have come through, Al Franken, Jesse Ventura, sports figures, the concerts I've been to, the one-on-ones you run into. My brother-in-law was at the retiring of Darryl Strawberry's jersey at the Saints game. Saints wasn't. Yep. Was. He met Darryl. He met Bill Murray, who was there inducting him. And they took pictures and stuff. And I'm sure you could have done a quick autograph. I have a bunch of covered books in case I run into these guys. I kick myself because I didn't think to go to the last Twin Cities Con. Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek was there. I just like collecting autographs, and doing it the comic ways is actually, it's kind of a way to fill that need because I got way too much crap around. The last thing I need is to, had I brought this guy's collection in, Corey, I'd be sitting alone in my parents' basement still, podcasting with you. Even now, there's a guy who's got a collection out there for $5,000 and 18 long boxes. And just looking at the things he posted, I'm like, this is a good deal. I've got $5,000. Ain't going to drop it before a shutdown, although I could probably turn around and make the money back. But and he's got autograph books in it. So I should just keep a notebook with me in case I do run into people. Because when I was out in Vegas Comic-Con, I was out in Vegas working TSA, and I went to a Star Trek con, and as I was waiting for David Gerrold's panel, they had a auction going on because apparently the con bought an auction, and then they auctioned these autographs off, and that's how they raise one of the ways they raise money. And I figured out a way to do it. What they do is they have this, you think of like a comic book backing board, and you have the comic, you have the autograph. It's probably 3x5 card, or maybe one of those little notebooks you have, the Mead notebooks. So they put it there, and then above it they put a picture of the celebrity. They put a framing, like not like a hardcore frame, but like a paper frame around it, and then they shrink wrap it or put it in a baggie and they sell it. And I was watching, and they had autographs from like John Wayne and all these other people. I've got a few autographs around, just random autographs, not necessarily comic book related. And if I ever, again, it's on my to-do list, okay? Make a picture of it, assuming I can even recognize who these are. A lot of these places, I guess they didn't have certificates of authenticity, but you can go out there and figure out if something's fake or not. Heck, I even got my check behind me, signed by our old pal Nick Postiglione, which I won't get rid of. That was off an endorsed Hot Comics check, because I'd always sell stuff to Nick, and he signed the back, and I'm like, oh, matter of fact, if I ever get together with you, Corey, we'll autograph our no prizes that we've been promising to mail out.
Joe prizes.
Joe prizes. Yeah, sorry, can't call them no prizes. I want to get sued.
Damn right.
So, anyways, if you got an autograph book you want, or you want to send me an autograph book, I love doing it. Especially you go to a show, you see some of the local creators, try to get them autographed. So I'm an autograph slut. What can I say? Why do I say that? Well, I was going to talk about some of the Kickstarters I backed just recently, but one of them was Fight Girls, the deluxe director's cut edition from, I forget the name of it. It was a book from Frank Cho through AWA. And so this is partly them and partly their studio. And if you go, you can get the deluxe director's cut. You still got 17 days to go, or 10 by the time the podcast drops. And one of the options was an autograph book. Again, way more expensive than just getting the soft cover from AWA, but hey, it's a Cho autograph. I like me my autographs. Heck, I even think I've got, what was that comic strip you and Dangerous Dan Moore did?
Worldwide News.
Yeah, I got my autographed copy of that. So it doesn't have to be a rich and famous person. That's probably why I liked having Tori on when we talked about Twin City Comics and all the autographed comics he has and things like that. So I'm an autograph slut. What can I say? Oh, I know. Other than going to the eBay store and buying things to help me buy more autographs, or at very least help me through the shutdown, you can listen to these guys and go to their sites. Why? They're our sponsors.
Our newest sponsor is NordVPN. Let's be honest, if you're out on the internet, you need a VPN to protect you. There's all sorts of things going on the internet where people can track you. You could accidentally download a keylogger, all sorts of things. NordVPN gives the best security possible. It has a password manager which generates complex passwords, syncs across all your devices, stores your notes and credit card information. It also gives you 10 gigabytes of private cloud storage, secure files that backs up your data automatically. But the main thing it gives you is peace of mind. It gives you peace of mind when you're out on the internet, when you're streaming, when you're playing games, when you're listening to podcasts like this one. It gives you safety anywhere at any time. It protects your online activity. You get full access to all content. And if you use the link go.nordvpn.net sh3ku, it'll take you to where you can get a great deal for a 1-month plan, a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan. They are our newest sponsor. We're happy to have them. And if you would like to sponsor something here at any of the podcasts on the Solitaire Rose Network, you can. Just email me, solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. And now we get to one of our new segments.
New segment. We have new segment music?
No.
Oh.
And that is Retro Reviews.
Yay!
I actually found this while moving boxes around and sorting comics and stuff to make room. Make room! Joe, I'm going to be reviewing 1941, The Illustrated Story. Drawn by Stephen Bissette and Rick Veitch.
Oh, from the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, the movie.
Adapted by Alan Asherman. Introduction by Steven Spielberg. This was published by Heavy Metal, but it doesn't say that anywhere. Oh, wait, no, it says Heavy Metal and Arrow Book Presents 1941. This was basically it was a square-bound magazine. It was, let's see, how much was it in the U.S.? I've got the UK, New Zealand, Australia prices. Oh, there's the U.S. price. It was $1.75. No, that can't be right. Yeah, that's the Australian price. Never mind.
Those wacky Australians.
But this is an adaptation of the movie 1941, which was, in a lot of ways, Steven Spielberg's first bomb. Now, I don't know who has seen the movie 1941. It has kind of faded into obscurity. Joe, did you watch 1941?
I did not. I do recall it. Oh, John Belushi's in this. Yeah, well, whatever.
It was tons of people. It was Spielberg's movie after Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Cost a fortune. I remember when I watched it, it was one of those movies where I watched and went, well, that was supposed to be funny. That was supposed to be funny. And there was this thing in the 70s, it kind of came from TV, where if people were shouting, that was supposed to make it funnier. If you watch mediocre sitcoms from the 70s, a lot of people shouting their lines because there was a feeling that, if you delivered it like that, it was a lot funnier. And it wasn't. It was also tons of big practical effects. It cost a fortune, had an all-star cast. The plot of the movie is that there is a Japanese submarine off the coast of LA. So everyone in LA thinks that the Japanese are about to attack LA the same way that Pearl Harbor was being attacked. And because it's LA, wackiness ensues because the submarine is basically just lost. And they spent a lot of money on this. It reminds me a lot of the Blues Brothers in that nothing succeeds like excess. Everything was big. You had a plane crash. You had a Ferris wheel go break off and go down a pier. Lots of explosions. And my friend Tommy, who I have bad movie parties with, and we talk classic film, he loves it. I just thought it was loud and not funny in it. And that's not the only Spielberg movie like that. There are a lot of people who love The Goonies, and I can't watch The Goonies because it's like being around kids that age. They're all yelling. They're all talking over each other. It's just, I don't want to be around these people. However, what they did for the comic, first off, you had Rick Veitch and Stephen Bissette, who were just graduating from the Joe Kubert School. This was before Stephen Bissette started on Swamp Thing. This was before Rick Veitch did his hero stories or any of his DC work. This is kind of their early stuff, and they did it like Mad Magazine. There is tons and tons and tons of extra little jokes hidden in the drawings. Alan Asherman, who adapted the screenplay, cleaned it up a lot. The flow of this comic is much better than the movie. It makes more sense than the movie. It's very much the gags are set up better. Now, Steven Spielberg wrote a introduction about the movie where, of course, he puts it over like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And here you go. 1941 also makes a strong social statement. I felt that after the war in Vietnam and the disillusionment the nation experienced, it was important to remind people that war doesn't have to be a trip up the river to hell. It could also be a lot of laughs. I believe that 1941 stresses the positive aspects of global conflict, which is something we tend to forget about these days. Oh, 70s. In every filmmaker's life, a 1941 invariably comes along. I can see 1941 more as a cleansing experience, the one possible way I can make you forget all the good things I've done in motion pictures. Erwin Hansen actually draws the picture of Spielberg with the introduction. Erwin Hansen, who also did Dondi and a bunch of humor comics for DC in the 50s. If you're not used to that 70s style from Veitch and Bissett, this, first off, the colors are very day glow. This was published on slick paper, and you could tell that the colorist was used to working on newsprint, because you will need sunglasses at some point for how bright this stuff comes off the page. There is nudity, which was implied in the movie. Oh, no, it's pretty blatant in the comic, because let's remember it was printed by Heavy Metal.
Yeah.
There is a lot of over-the-top art. You're not looking at this and thinking it's going to be realistic in any way. The humor is not just in the foreground, but they also have a lot of stuff going on in the background, because Bissett and Veitch were also big fans of Bill Elder, who would do that. And it's weird in that it is so much better than the movie, to the point where I remember reading the comic before the movie and going, wow, this comic is really funny, really well done. The art wasn't what I was used to at the time, because let's remember it was 78, 79, 80. I was still very used to the Marvel style. And this is much more underground, much more raw and gritty and sketchy, and
I will interject.
It wasn't clean art. This was very messy art.
If you're how would you grade that? Buy, borrow, ignore?
I would call it a buy.
Okay, because you can find them on eBay. You got to be tricky with the search, because when I put in 1941 graphic novel, apparently there's a Shadow miniseries that comes up, so I had to exclude that word. And the first one that came up was $44. Look closer. Maybe just put in, it's 1941, The Illustrated Story is the full title. I found them as low as $25 plus shipping, so you can try it. I do want to add that another one, it's Marvel. Corey, did you ever see Jaws 2?
No.
I
was warned off of it.
Did you ever read the graphic novel?
Yes.
Okay.
Which was a Marvel Super Special.
Don't judge or ask, but Chris and I watched Jaws 2.
Didn't you watch like all the Jaws movies, or a bunch of the Jaws movies?
We tapped out. We were going to do them all, but we didn't do Jaws 3D because I couldn't find any glasses. And the one where this time it's personal. Chris couldn't
Jaws,
get off.
The Revenge.
Chris couldn't get off that was the actual poster line, and we laughed too hard. We watched Jaws 2. I fast forwarded every time there was long exposition. I fast forwarded. The graphic novel reads better. Plus, it has a very large, endowed woman water skiing with Bruce jumping out of the water right behind him. No, not Bruce Campbell, Bruce the shark. I don't believe Steven Spielberg had anything to do with this.
No, he did not.
And the only reason Roy Schneider came back was to settle a contractual dispute. And him and his wife were probably there. I forgive me because I'm not going to look it up. I don't remember the actress's name. They were probably the best part of the whole movie. I just wanted to get fast forward to the part where, and I don't care if I'm giving it away. Throw a spoiler if you want. He holds an electrical power line that is foreshadowed in other scenes until Bruce jumps out of the water, grabs it, and electrocutes itself. And of course it electrocutes itself very much the way a shark would if he was dumb enough to bite a line. I think they play off the fact that, the shark was damaged in a fire attack earlier, so it was probably crazy anyways. So if you gotta do it, go find the Jaws 2 graphic novel, or I'm sorry, Marvel Super Special. I'm looking for it now to give you an idea, because a lot of those super specials are expensive. Or I guess novelization is actually better because it actually reads like it could have happened. And of course, eBay's being extremely helpful and just coming up with, Jaws 2. There it is, $65. Because apparently Kiss collectors like it because they advertise a kiss on the back cover. So if you got 65, and that's cheap. The other ones are going over 100. I'm sorry, it's a woman scuba diving, not water skiing. Why am I talking about this?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
But they condensed the movie into 71 pages, which is pretty cool because the movie itself is like 9.5 days long. On the buy, borrow, or ignore, I give it a buy. As I said, I remember I read this before I saw the movie, and I went into the movie thinking, oh, if it's half as funny as the comic, it's going to be great. It wasn't half as funny as the comic. It was a comedy where you didn't laugh. And I don't think there's anything worse than that. Believe it or not, kids, we're getting away with this under 2 hours.
Woohoo! Go out and do something.
The big line people use now is touch grass, which is a new version of, go outside, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the heck with that. You're done early. Go read a comic.
Yeah.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
Some people are afraid to be corny. Not me. I live life on the cob, baby.
Yeah, we have a sign at the group home now.
Oh, yeah?
Yep, on the fridge. You got a drawing of an ear of corn with the no symbol. No corn. Because the overnight guy is tired of changing adult diapers after the residents have had corn. Hit my music.
Your music. I want my music. Can't we just agree on music?
Fine. Hit our music.
Yay.